You guys, I'm going to start so that we can finish on time. So thank you all for coming today. Thanks family, thanks friends, and especially thanks to my brother Pat, who is my webmaster, and he's recording this, and he does anything I ask. He can do anything.
That's true.
So, including design book covers, I just learned. So I'm going to read a few poems for you this afternoon. This whole thing is going to be less than an hour, so we're not going to spend a lot of time. But I want to start by talking a little bit about poetry, about my thoughts about it. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm just going to read poems to you that I picked thinking that they would be good for today. So I feel really strongly that it should not be a struggle to understand a poem. As a reader, a lifelong reader of others' work, I've often been confused and felt even condescended to by some poets, and I'll name names. New Yorker poetry, okay? I read the New Yorker and I can't understand the poems. So I'm irritated by abstract, inaccessible work that feels like I'm being exposed to rather than engaged as in communication with someone. And I found this wonderful little poem by Jean Little that kind of sums it up for me. Do you know the poem by Robert Frost, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening? Okay, I love this. This is called After English Class. I used to like stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. I liked the coming darkness, the jingle of harness bells breaking and adding to the stillness, the gentle drift of snow. But today, the teacher told us what everything stood for. The woods, the horse, the miles to go, the sleep, they all have hidden meanings. It's grown so complicated now that next time I drive by, I don't think I'll bother to stop. So that to me is how many of us had the love of poetry and the singing of it knocked out of us in high school. I sure did. But what's fascinating to me is at the big moments in our lives, weddings, funerals, memorials, events, ceremonies, everyone looks for the incantation of the right poem, right? We've all done this. You search for a poem to read at a memorial or whatever. I think there's sort of something about the 100 proof kind of superheated, right to the point of poetry that people still vestigially crave. So those of you who are family already know this. Those of you who don't, I'll be really brief. I grew up as the daughter of a military officer. We were Catholic, which was required by the church at that time for my Brooklyn Irish Catholic dad to marry my Protestant mother. So all of us in the family grew up culturally bilingual, okay? Then I had to learn many other cultures as we moved around the world, and I learned to stand back, stay quiet, observe, and figure out who was who. And that has served me really well in my writing. I spent my professional career in Seattle, raised my 2 kids there as a psychiatric social worker and a public policy analyst in the criminal justice system, writing grants, laws, public policy, white papers, correspondence for elected officials. I taught juvenile law at the police academy for 23 years. And I met my husband, Mike, who's a Seattle cop, he's sitting right there, when I worked for his department as a crisis intervention mental health worker, taking 911 calls that were not crime related, suicide, family fights, etc. After we retired, we left Seattle and we moved to Whidbey Island in 2001. And since then, I've been active working on behalf of children, families, seniors, and especially veterans because of my background as a military brat. Most recently, I did PTSD intake interviews for people in a vet center in Everett, where I was really touched to see people my age bringing in their dads, finally. finally bringing in their dads for some help. And then, of course, all of the chaos of the global war on terror and what that's done to people and veterans, and the sexual assaults of female soldiers. So you probably want to know why I picked the genre of poetry. I mentioned writing, speaking, because I became more and more aware of the volume of words everywhere. Podcasts, social media, opinion pieces, soapboxes, doom scrolling, Facebook. I don't know if there's a more verbal culture than Americans. I don't know if there's another culture where everybody is ready to have the microphone put in front of their face and to be asked about the thing that happened next door. I mean, we're just all ready for that. We're waiting for that. So it's just too much talk. So I wanted to get down to not when there is something more to add in a piece of poetry, but when there's nothing left to take away. I wanted it so distilled. So, and you're going to hear that when I read my work. And then one final note before I start on the reading. Every poet, well, every writer, I guess, but every poet in particular develops their own style for how they want to read their stuff. And a lot of poets want to get the audience fully oriented about this poem. I wrote this in Stockholm when I saw my husband walking down the street with his old girlfriend, and it was winter and the snow was falling, and et cetera, et cetera. I really don't like that. I feel like, let me hear the poem. If I have a question about it, I'll ask you later. So my style is, I'm just going to read these. I'm going to start through, and then if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. I'm going to start with a poem called Nuance. We don't do well with subtle distinctions. We do stocks and bonds, trends and data, treaties and contracts. We put people on the moon and stick to the point. Houston, we have a problem. We need an expanded verbal universe, more tenses than past, present, and future. One for when ancestors speak, another for when it seems like yesterday, one for premonition of something past, and one for everything happening all at once. We need words to describe the shades between go and stay, for emotions read at a glance, the meanings of tears, footsteps that tell you everything, the way love changes, and all the amazing things we call ordinary. Free will. Nuns insisted God is in charge. He has a personal plan for me. He sends angels to protect me. He loves me, so I should love him. That sounded pretty good. I felt fortunate to be a Catholic in the one true church with a VIP pass through purgatory. They described hell, eyes of flame, how you get there, it's one big thing or a bunch of little things. You never escape, you suffer forever, flayed and burned. Heaven, less graphically described. Does God leave the house saying, "Don't let strangers in, I'll be right back," and there is a knock on the door, and I open it to the devil who tells me, "Think impure thoughts," and I say, "Okay." Then thunder rolls and I am doomed? Was I absent on the day this all made sense? On aging. It's the darndest thing, but one day my waist disappeared. Gone. No warning. I am rectangular. Pants won't zip. My fingers got lumpy, skin speckled like eggs. I see my parents' faces in mine, my dad's eye pouches, my mom's waddle. I say things I swore I never would. I'm just resting my eyes, and people drive like idiots, and I dig in my purse for exact change. When I was first called ma'am, a door slammed in my face. I am in a club where we count losses, marvel at how many there are. Did we squander our youth? Where did the time go? It is hard to grasp, but true. The past is more vivid than today. Some say aging is a gift to help us understand impermanence, teach us to focus on the moment and accept things as they are. I think it is more of a shit show. Dentist Day. We drive there together. We wonder who will finish first. Worry X-rays will reveal problems. Tease about who will be coached on better flossing. Little lessons that are annoying, but what can you do? We talk about toothless grandparents and parents with dentures. We congratulate ourselves for avoiding their fate, though the hygiene routine gets old. New brushes and floss? They offer and we always say yes. I ask for pink because that one is obviously mine. Green is his favorite if they have it. God forbid we should use each other's. Someday it will be just one room. Toothbrush color won't matter. Nobody will ask how it went or care if it hurt. Nobody will remember parents who rarely saw a dentist. Nobody will agree with you it is worth the effort to die with one's teeth. Just the facts. Mike's words are coins placed on a counter. Exact change, no more, no less. Don't tie up police radio with banter. Think, then state the essential, often in code. The radio chatters all day. 3 Robert, hear radio, DUI, robbery in progress, and the big one, help the officer. A syllable may be added. Howell Street stressed how well, so nobody goes to How Street. Emotions are chaff, whirling confusion. Crispness makes order, describes trouble, brings backup. Thus, Mike's talk got lean and honed. If you say, well, to make a long story short, he will say, it's too late. I live in this laconic world now, terseness, my second language, practiced every day. How was your day? Okay. What are you thinking? Not much. Do you love me? Yes. Not a fairy tale. Send me a prince, please. Modern type would be okay because Prince William in his uniforms, those gold braid hats pulled low over his eyes, the way he looks at his wife, hot to trot, that would be just fine. A storybook prince would also do, but the fighting kind, not the page boy haircut type. More a knight than a prince as I think about it, to avoid the leotards, pointy shoes, and ambiguous vibe. I don't want chaste wake-up kisses. I want somebody who can keep me safe from dragons, climb up the tower and bust me out. When morning chirping wakes me, I look over at that dear face, clenched to resist the dawn. I know his first waking words. The birds are back. God damn it, they're loud. I think how he calls to see where I am, to ask for what's for dinner, to check if I need something from the store. This is not a castle in a magical kingdom. It is something else. Okay, why I can't have nice things. Strangely enough, Mike wanted to go to the annual Christmas party at an Architectural Digest estate, 30 acres, 2 full-time gardeners we'd only driven by. I found tights that sort of matched, an old but expensive skirt which almost went with a new sweater that made my boobs look perky and disguised my loosening waist. On the icy way, we agreed we would rather be home in our robes, noting our small talk skills were rusty, promising 1 hour would be enough. I vowed to avoid cheese, remember names, hold in my stomach. A dog wagged us up the steps, very polite, his collar colored lights. Inside was a movie set, trees of different themes in every room, art from a gallery near their ranch in Montana, and some from their place in Hawaii. The host told me about his first divorce, in which he lost his Jaguar and several homes before unexpectedly falling in love with the hostess at a local restaurant. When I first saw her, I thought it only happened in the movies, he said. The brie was warm and delicious. So were the roast pork, olive tapenade, leek quiches, punch in a crystal bowl, and 5 kinds of chocolate desserts. My chatting skills returned. It's all about asking questions. Nobody asked me anything. We drove home saying, well, that wasn't too awful. What a place. Would you like that? In the garage, we found ceiling pitch in a long, sticky river. Container breached by a hungry mouse. We poked around a while. Traps and cleanup tomorrow. Undressing, I found great blobs of sticky tar on my fancy red sweater. I didn't sleep until I had tried every cleaning product, and it only got worse. This is another example of why I can't have nice things. Soldier on. I have always known death could come anytime for anyone. That was spelled out for me early. I understood my dad might die in war or riding his Vespa out to the runway. His heart could stop in his sleep. My mother insisted we all line up to say goodbye to him whenever he left in his flight suit. When I was 5, he went to war in Korea. Guys named their planes, and I got to pick a name for his. Don't shoot was stenciled across the fuselage. I already knew how to do my part. Hope, wait, prepare for the worst, make a joke, and soldier on. The day he flew a kite. He said when he was a POW in a filthy, freezing stalag, he survived by eating anything he had seen animals eat back on the farm. Hay, grass, bark, insects, potato peels. If they ate it, he could. He was half his weight when he came back. He kept from killing himself there, he said, thinking about the spring day he was summoned from milking cows to help his dad make a kite. He smelled the wood shavings warm on the barn floor. He watched his mother tear up an old sheet for the tail. He remembered his mother's skirt blowing up, exposing her legs. She laughed when his dad lifted an eyebrow, a promise between them. His father ran to launch the kite, happy as a boy, agile and strong. He was handed the string and felt the kite tugging like a mule. They tied the string to a branch and had leftover biscuits and bacon, lemonade from a jar. The kite rode the breeze, spinning and dipping. They showed him another thing that day, how to send a wish up the string. Write a note, send it up, and your wish will come true. Save it for a bad day. D-Day. Jerky combat film shows flotillas, landing boats, millions of tracer rounds, men in bunkers and on beaches, running for their lives, blinded by smoke, dodging shattered helmets floating away in surf, deaf to commands or screams. Behind, on sheltered desks, are carbon copies of orders, lists, inventories, directions, transfers, requisitions. There are acres of trucks and tanks and stretchers, tents and soup vats and pallets of ammo. It is too big to happen, too many moving parts, yet here it is. Someone had to plan for this day. Someone had to study the maps and the numbers, master the tides and the weather, learn the enemy, weigh the odds, and say, go. You never know enough. But one person had to say, today is the day. You hope your people will hold, will swim through, run fast across the sand, climb the cliffs, aim true. You know the hard fate of young men at war, the same ones who snapped to attention as you drove by yesterday, 5-star flag flapping in the cold, salty breeze. Dodgeball targets. I remember them. The girl who chopped her hair, plucked her eyelashes, and later became a cutter. The boy with one set of clothes, urine smell strong in a hot classroom. The teacher made him sit apart in the back. The other boy with googly eye glasses who smiled all the time and tried to join games. The girl who cried every recess. Nobody asked why. The ball throwers were taller, straighter. They had retainers and nice haircuts. They could read. They did their homework. They got excused early for vacations where they learned to ski. Their fathers were cool on career day. Their moms looked pretty picking them up. They invited lucky classmates to birthday parties with bouncy castles, magicians, and fancy t-shirts for favors. They hooked the ball hard and fast, their evolutionary role to destroy the weak. None of their targets escaped. Some kids didn't see it coming. Some didn't understand the game. Some couldn't move. Some wouldn't play because it hurt so bad, but they got hit on the sidelines anyway.
Oh.
Uvalde lament. The priest dons vestments over a crisis of faith he must hide from his people. They count on him for miracles, change hatred to forgiveness, despair to hope, death to resurrection, bodies and blood of their children back into the daily bread of life. For years, he married young lovers, baptized their babies, and so he will do his best. He learned about TikTok for one funeral, a little girl's astronaut dreams for another, Cub Scout projects for another. He will watch videos of children learning to walk, egg hunts in new Easter clothes, toothless grins. He will sanctify the caskets made to look like rocket ships or fairy tale carriages. He will see the grief of modest people who pray, God help us. For tomorrow, he must Google who Princess Moana is. Then he will sit in the dark. Sleeper cell. Baby girls go into deep cover day one. They live among the people, master language and customs. They watch and wait, hiding on the periphery, paid half, given the vote, bodies displayed to sell cars. They learn to pretend they are not special. They wait for the activation code, then get to work. Birth, nurse, teach, help neighbors, support boy men who cannot hold jobs, build churches and schools, learn to change their mother's diaper and take their father's car keys. They retire, unsung, unrecognized, still undercover, lips sealed, granny, sweet as pie. Yard sale. Baby clothes carefully pressed, stained but almost new. Power tools, cords wrapped and stowed by a Navy man. Small kitchen appliances that seemed like a good idea once. You could dehydrate fruit or hard cook eggs. Maybe buy the picture just for the frame. You could use some clothes for quilt squares if you ever had time. You should eat more fruit. Would the blending stick help? There are pruning shears you kind of need. Prices are already low, but signs say make an offer. There's the recliner embossed with Granddad's shape. You can smell him in the leather. cagey shoppers handle costume jewelry, remembering stories of undiscovered diamonds, a rare brooch worth a mint. It is intimate to handle these simple things, brought from private places to public tables, revealing family stories, the unspooling history of children, clothes the lady cannot wear anymore, too small, too fancy, a wide lapelled sports coat only worn once at his retirement party. What if we could be as honest about ourselves? A little worn, but still good, needs TLC. What if we just put it out there, nothing hidden? Do we have a deal? As is.
True.
Bad art. Dogs playing cards, different breeds. Shot glasses of whiskey, poker chips and cigars. Bandanas, some derbies. A dusky lady, perfect round breasts, nipples perky, tropical fruit basket on her head, fluorescent paint blaring from black velvet. Woodland scene with birches and a creek, an out-of-scale deer with a fawn or two, a lowering winter sky, only 3 shades of green for the whole forest. Take these paintings to a Brooklyn gallery, announce the exhibit, Americana, invitation only, serve cheese, crackers, and wine. This is how bad art makes good. Free it from smoky pool rooms and the faded walls of motels. Burnish it with irony and count your money. Fight or flight. I long to be a brawler, landing unexpected blows on the guy in the smelly black balaclava looming over my bed at 2 a.m., knocking him through a window, blood on the glass. He won't be back, impressed cops say. Sprinting is second choice. Jump up and bolt, weaving to avoid bullets, catching my breath way down the block. The bad guy shakes his head, knowing he is toast with Mr. Big. Sadly, I freeze when startled. A plump, meaty dinner for the snarling predator. No fight, no flight, no dodging, no broken glass, then made into earmuffs. Queen Elizabeth II's 100th birthday is April 21st in a few days. There's going to be a big deal in England, so I brought you this one called Queen in her honor. I have wondered about the royal gynecologist. How did he, I am sure it is a he, land that job? He had to know how to employ a speculum with deference. Were the Queen's stirrups lined in ermine? I doubt she wore a skimpy gown or had to sit on crinkly paper. I have thought about her purse. She clung to it like a nervous tourist in Naples. Of course, there would be a hanky and reading glasses. She did not need a passport or cash for tips. Speech notes? Breath mints? Silver flask? Who taught her to say we? Who showed her the wave? How many hands did she shake? I'm sure it was millions. Not shake, really, more a 2-finger touch. God save the Queen from hard grips. Lock up. I wonder how I would do in prison. Could I exercise outside every day, then take a hot shower? I'd need a good laptop and Wi-Fi. I worry about starchy food. I want to stay healthy. Maybe take the eggs, skip the hash browns, drink a lot of water. I could lift weights, gain muscle mass, lead a book group, get a law degree, help other inmates file appeals. Maybe the guards would be chill. They might loosen my cuffs, banter and smile, keep the noise down so I could sleep. I'd want quirky prisoners to hang out with, a rock star busted for heroin, a priest in for protest, a Ponzi scheming CEO. I prefer my own cell, but not solitary. People go nuts in there, fast. And the final one is called Amazing Grace. Grace goes unnoticed, like the air we breathe, things we don't stop to see. Too busy anyway, so much to do. Sure, the sun comes up, big moon waxes and wanes, species come back, rivers clear, people share what they have, rush into collapsing buildings, work around the clock, dig each other out. It is only after fire and flood, after we are still alive, after green returns through char, after we don our black clothes and kneel together, we think to call it amazing.
All right. How many of those were newer?
I only brought one kind of a hot off the press one, a new one. These have been worked for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to hear the newest one?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Okay. Yeah, this is from my recent experience of getting an ambulance ride to the ER. It's called On the Edge. Okay. I try to avoid cliches, but they spring up like weeds. When they said, "We are sending you to the ER right now, you might be having a heart attack," I thought, is this how it ends? I had always been curious about death, more so lately. I never would have guessed a heart attack. Within minutes, I had my first ambulance ride. Not just any ambulance, but an authoritative fire department rig with 4 blue uniformed EMTs, competent and funny as good men can be. I had always wondered if you could hear the siren inside. You can't. It's a pretty smooth ride, intimate. "Rest your hand on my leg so I can check your pulse as we go," said the guy sitting next to my stretcher. "Just relax, we got you." I did. That is when I knew it was not my day to die. Weeks later, I can still feel that strong leg. My hand tingles. I believe my blood pressure rose, but he was too nice to comment. That is when I knew I would live. So that's one kind of in progress.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you ever struggle with, am I writing poetry or am I writing a memoir?
No, that's an interesting question because a lot of them are kind of personal, family history, my own history, my parents. I'm not a big fan of memoir, honestly. I think a lot of it is kind of narcissistic and boring. That's terrible to say, but it's not my favorite genre. So I don't want to write memoir. I want to write these little glimpses, just little flashes, and then get off the stage.
It's kind of like pointillism in poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, comedians go to comedy clubs and will work on one joke over and over and over until they get it right. How do you evolve your poetry? What mechanisms do you use? Do you share with people? Do you speak out loud? Does Mike give you feedback? How do you go through the process of getting something to where you think it's ready for the...
It is truly a weird thing. Some poems are pretty much done pretty quick. This On the Edge one, the ambulance ride, that just...
It's done.
It's done.
Right.
I changed a few things. I had blue uniform paramedics and I changed it to EMTs. I messed with it a little bit. There are other poems that I've been trying to write for years. And I'll give you an example. Do you know when you see a 4-year-old boy in a Superman cape out at Costco or in the supermarket, dead serious, doesn't want to be condescended to, he's not trying to be cute. He is ready to serve. He is waiting for the signal. And it is such a beautiful and precious and fleeting time. And I want to write about that. And I've tried probably 10 times, and it's just not there yet. It just seems so tender to me, and I just can't do it yet. So some are fast, some are slow. Yeah. And then Sarah, your niece, is a big help on just tiny little adjustments. And there's a poem in there called Prompt, which is for the writers in here. You know that you get writer's prompts. And so it's, write about transcendence, or write about the past, or you get these prompts and you have to write. So this is a poem about prompts, but I use the analogy of going down to catch the poem in a river, a silver fish, a silver poem kind of floating by. And, I thought it was really nice. So I was talking about the river rocks rattling together, and I used the term rattling like cymbals, like that. You know how you hear the river rocks? And Sarah said, I really like it, but I'd like another word than cymbals. That's okay, but if you can think about another word, I'd like and I was sleeping, and I woke up and I thought, castanets. It's castanets.
Oh, cast a net.
It's both the word play about catching the poem, and it's a better sound. That's what the river rocks sound like. So, she's helpful on kind of getting that dialed in like that. So, so.
Do you think the rhythm is unconscious, or are you having to be deliberate about it?
Very deliberate.
Long sentence, short sentence, like the way it dances. Is
Yes.
that something that's just kind of happening, or are you thinking about
I'm
it?
thinking about it all the time. And one of the things you miss in a reading is you miss the work that's done to lay it out on the page.
Uh-huh.
You miss the line breaks and kind of the visual rhythm of it.
Yeah.
But I read every single thing out loud, and you can hear when it's wonky.
Mhm.
You can just hear when you need to carve off a syllable or 3 syllables. Yeah.
Do you ever send your work back to the subject that you were writing about?
Such a good
To
question.
EMT? Did you ever send
No, that's a good
The
idea.
fancy people, the fancy house, did you ever
it
get?
back? The fancy house. Yeah.
The fancy
Not a good
house. No. It's so funny that you would ask that. So my former daughter-in-law lives someplace in this neighborhood. I've kind of lost track of her. And I wrote a really heartfelt confession about how judgmental I was of her when she was married, when she was part of our family, and how I criticized how she fed her kid. I didn't actively I thought criticized. I didn't like a lot of things. I didn't like that she didn't help them with their homework, but she did a lot of great things. She had game night every Thursday night, and they looked forward to it. I mean, she was a good mom. So I wrote this poem, which I can never publish, never. It would really hurt me if she ever read it. But yeah, sending it to the EMTs, that's not a bad idea. That was so hot. So thank you guys for coming and listening and giving me another chance to practice my reading. And thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Beautifully read.
No, it's a comment. Thank you for writing.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're welcome.
it's beautiful.
I hope you like them.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks
and
for
he's a
coming.
hard grader, so.
Oh, is he a hard grader? He's a judge.
Yeah, he's a hard grader.
Lay off.
Thanks, Janice.
Yeah, thank you, Pat.